Let's see how long it takes the patch to die down after pressing the stop button. Oh, I did see there was a new Rob Wars. Yeah, about where Bach stuff comes from. Time. Hello, hi, welcome to the show, everybody. We are at some point. Hello, hi. Is my mic doing that thing? Well, I always gotta check. It hasn't done it in a while, but like the hurried lover, it comes and goes. Properties, levels. Nope, levels are at 100%. So this is probably just the limiter. Hello. No, actually, is this? Yeah, there's a little bit. Do I have a gain filter? Never mind. Hello, hi. I hope everybody's having a great Saturday. What's the occasion? Lord Professor. Well, anytime I upload a YouTube video, I think it's a good idea to hang out here on Saturday morning with you folks and just talk about whatever's on your mind, but also the subject of the video. So I uploaded my first ever, probably not my last, but I don't think we're going to see another modular video for a little while, but my first modular synthesis video. And so I thought I would do what I normally do on Twitch, which is I'm going to break this patch down. So we're going to hang out here and talk for, whatever's on your mind stuff. And then I'm literally going to unplug this patch and I'm going to show you how this works. And there's no reason to do this other than it is interesting. It's not. Also, the more I explain how modular synthesis works, the more I understand it. And so it's a part of my journey through this hobby is explaining to other people how this works. Because you'd be surprised at how hard it is to explain, even when you think you know what's going on. So yeah, talking about something like modular synthesis and how this works, there is no danger that y'all are going to suddenly, this is the most expensive way to make really unlistenable music. I try to tell people who are sort of modular curious, especially if they're nerds, I'm like, it's like the hobby is like Warhammer. If the cheapest goblin you could buy was $120, right? And then, but the average goblin in your army costs like $300. It's stupid. It's a stupid amount of money. So there's no danger that any of y'all are going to suddenly rush off, and I would not recommend it unless you're, an old person who's doing okay and doesn't have kids to put through college. But it is fascinating. It is a fascinating hobby, and I watch tons of YouTubers who I'm really glad I found them and I subscribe to them, even though there's no danger that I'm ever going to become a farrier, for instance. But I still like the hoof GP. I'm not going to become a dog groomer, but I still like girl with the dogs. So can you get more culture or lore? You can do what I do, which is you can get it the way you can get it from the source that I get it from, which is make it up. World building a pseudo Hagara culture. Well, I don't know what that is, but if you mean Hagara, then you know almost as much about it as I do. No, see, people say that. People say, so like Warhammer, and it's like, yeah, you're being funny, but no, imagine if, yeah. Anyway. He talks, I hope you liked the DFAM. I love the DFAM. I think there's it's got one, it doesn't, what is it missing that I wish I had? Like a reset or something like that. It's tricky. But as a sound source, as a sound source for drums, it's unbelievable. Yeah, well, why would you, my lore is Sengam Baram. I don't know anything about Hagara because the players have never gone there. And I'm not that kind of world builder. Jado is like, as a Warhammer hobbyist, Warhammer is a very cheap hobby in comparison. Yeah, a teenager can get into Warhammer, with their allowance money or borrowing some money from their middle-class parents. They couldn't get into modular synthesis, which is too bad. And one of the reasons they can't is because it is such a niche hobby, which means, and these modules cost a lot to make, but they have to do really small print runs, like 3,000 units, 5,000 units is a lot in modular synthesis. If it was 50,000, then they'd be able to make them cheaper. They'd be able to source them cheaper and get them assembled. But often these things are handmade, hand assembled in various places. But anyway, yeah, I don't make up. I'm not that kind of, I've said this a million times in various places, but there's always new people in any given live stream. I'm not that kind of world builder who just sits there and noodles on stuff for no reason, just because I'm bored. And that, I think, probably puts me in the minority of people who are professional world builders. I spent 15 years in video games as a narrative director, and I often, I loved that because there was actually one period I was working on one game where big AAA sci-fi video game, and I had just started, and they had this idea that one of the things you might do in this game was literally explore the world. Like, now this is a first person shooter, So this is one of those like throwing ideas against the wall brainstorming things you do at the very, very beginning when you don't really know what the game is yet. And you're sort of putting all the ideas that might fit into this box and you don't know. And one of them was, yeah, it could be cool that you could learn about this world and about the wildlife and about the flora and fauna and how they interact. And that might actually help you fight these monsters. You know, you might get like buffs or stuff based on what lore you had uncovered. And I don't know that they had a really clear idea of how exactly we're going to uncover lore, probably like have a scanner or something. But they thought, well, let's have Matt just write a bunch of lore for this world. And the funny thing is there was a lot for me to do on that game, a lot of dialogue to write and a lot of like actual like gameplay critical world building that needed to be done. And so after I'd spent, you know, a little while working on this like planetary encyclopedia thing, I just stopped. I said, I don't think this is going to go in the game. I don't think this game is about this, and I've got lots of other stuff to do, and I don't think anybody's going to notice that I've stopped, and I was correct. And the more time I spent in video games, the more often that happened, where, you know, you'd be in a big meeting, and everybody be like, I've got a great idea, we do this, and everyone gets really excited. And, you know, after a while, after you've been through the ringer on a couple of these projects, you just start to learn. It's hard to explain. Like, you just learn, like, yeah, everybody's super excited by this, but it's not going to happen. And I would start saying that late in my career, and people are like, what do you mean it's not going to happen? Everybody really believes it. I'm like, yeah, but we got a game to finish. Like, this is an 11th hour idea that everybody just had in this meeting, and unless it's incredibly cheap to do and only takes, you know, one person working, and they don't have to rely on anybody else, and there's no interoperability or anything like that, then it's just not going to happen. We got a game to make. So yeah, I'm excited. I think it's a great idea. I love it, but I've made games before, and I recognize. So yeah, that's like the one time in my career or my life really, that I've ever just been expected to invent a lot of lore for no real reason other than people thought it would be neat. I only ever have to make up stuff when the players need it. So I don't know anything about Hagara because the players have never gone there. You know, I know like one or two details, and we won't find out anything about Hagara unless or until we do something like make an adventure. And I think that's probably how things are going to go with Draw Steel is we'll make an adventure about a place, and then we'll make either in that adventure or as a supplement to that adventure, maybe a really big supplement, we'll make a setting thing. I think that's probably what's going to happen with Vasloria is we're going to do Crack the Sun. And Crack the Sun might, we don't know, we're not 100% certain, might come with a digital download. I don't think we could fit another physical product into that box. A digital download that's like a gazetteer of Urland, probably, which is Dalrath, Bedegar, Tor. Actually, I'm not even sure Tor is in Urland. Tor might be northern Gant, which is to say that there's probably like another barony in around there that I've forgotten the name of. So yeah, that's the thing is like people want more people. The good news is that this is largely in line with what our audience wants. A lot of people are curious about Orden and the Timescape, and they would like to know more, but they do not need to know more, and that's the issue. And that creates this interesting little dichotomy in the community where there's lots of people who are curious, and I love that. And I really look forward to satisfying their curiosity because I think we could do a really good job at that. But the majority of the people interacting with Draw Steel right now are playing it. They're either playing it or getting ready to play it, either as players or directors. And their needs when it comes to lore, very different. Very different, and I think largely satisfied by the adventures that we put in front of people. But more adventures would be better. Do you need to know about music to get into modular? No, not really. No, actually, no. Although I think, for me, part of the fun of the modular journey is learning music, is learning what different scales sound like, you know, and then learning why a violin. That's one of the things that I didn't know until I adopted modular as my hobby. Why does a violin sound like that? Well, there's a reason. It has to do with what a saw wave is, and why a saw wave sounds different in your ear to your ear than a sine wave. And then you learn about what is mechanically happening with a violin, right? And there's a great GIF online. I think I posted it in a video somewhere where they show a saw wave, right, doing this, and they show a close-up. It almost looks like an electron microscope. It's not. It's just a black and white slow motion photograph of somebody drawing a bow across a violin string. And what happens is the friction on the string starts off as higher than the resistance that you're pulling it with. So the string gets pulled with the bow, but then the resistance of the string exceeds the pull of the bow, and it goes punk and goes back into shape. But then there's more bow to drag. There's a big long bow that is, so as soon as it snaps back into place, that part of the bow grabs it and starts pulling it forward again. And that is literally like that snap, 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 snap. It's literally the same thing. And that is the motion that your speaker cone makes, and that gets transferred into your ear hole. And that's why violins sound the way they do. And when you realize that saw waves, a saw wave with a filter sounds like a violin, you're like, oh, this is amazing, right? You feel like you learn a lot about music. I just learned a lot about, well, did you really? You learned a lot about sound. Yeah, you learn about stuff like that, and it's fascinating. But no, you don't need. I don't think. I will tell you that if you know anything about music, it will be a lot easier if you started to get into modular to figure out how to do what you want to do, right? And often, if you're somebody that has like musical ideas in their head and you're trying to get it out via modular synthesis, then you probably need to be a musician. Otherwise, you're just going to do a lot of trial and error, and that's a lot on top of already trialing and error all of modular synthesis. Somebody just said something that I wanted to read. Paul Shackelford, 2 sessions in Draw Steel, best sessions. Look at this. Paul Shackelford gets the first gold star for the stream. 2 sessions into Draw Steel, best sessions ever, never going back. I feel the same way. I can't go back. Puco says, I started my first ever homebrew campaign recently. Congratulations. And events are leading us toward war. How can I help my players get the sensation of the world being at war without only running large battles? Well, that's easy. I mean, go watch any like war movies. You know, think about, I mean, there are places here in the real world that are at war. Just go read threads on Reddit or whatever about what life is like there, because the way you communicate, the way you impress upon your players that the world, quote unquote, is at war is how different it is from the world they know. It would help if you had been running a game for a while and the world wasn't at war, so they have a contrast. But if assuming your players have played other RPGs before, they have the experience of playing a game where the world is not at war. And, you know, the idea that you can't get things, the idea that the food is scarce, you know, places aren't safe. People who used to be available aren't available. Some of them are dead, right? People, depending on the kind of game you run and what your setting is like, people might be being pressed into service. That happens. You know, so that's the way you show them that the world is going to be at war, or the world is at war, is the fact that it's not, life is not normal anymore. It's this war thing isn't this wallpaper that's in the background that people can just ignore. It's affecting everybody's lives, including the players, including the heroes, rather. We have an idea for how to do, you know, obviously we made a big book, Kingdoms in Warfare, which, if not for a colossal screw up during the printing of it, principally related to the ridiculous number of SKUs we had, which we're never going to do that again. I think it would have been a lot more well received, but it was very badly delayed and there was a lot of fuckery surrounding it. So fair enough. But I was really proud of the warfare system in Kingdoms in Warfare, but it is basically its own game, right? And that's one of the things people like about it, is many of our testers kind of fell in love with it because it was an entirely self-contained game that they got to play and test and didn't have anything to do with, you know, 5th edition nonsense that often doesn't make any sense. Which is really hard on the testers as much as the designers. But for Draw Steel, this is, I think, an answer to your question. For Draw Steel, we felt like this isn't D&D. D&D is descended from war games and has war game in its DNA still, I think. You know, if you try to run, which I do not recommend, the original Temple of Elemental Evil, which, you know, still tops a lot of like best D&D adventures ever. No idea why. Most is not best, but a lot of people don't know the difference. Oscars. You got to spend 3 pages of really tiny text reading about like the Battle of Emredy Meadows, the Battle of Emredy Meadows and Verbabonk. And because it was the Temple of Elemental is what happened after this war game that they ran, right? So there's this wargaming DNA, like armor class comes from war games. Literally like first class armor, right? That kind of stuff. And so I felt like the warfare system that we developed for, especially as a completely optional third-party add-on, why not make it this really fun, cool war game that's kind of bite-sized and easy to run? And so you're not biting on. It's not like running a huge. It's not that complicated. It's relatively simple and straightforward, and that's what allows it to kind of sit on top of 5th edition. And the idea that there's a war happening while the players are, that all kind of made sense to us. But this is a different game and a different era, And we felt like, no, it's not like D&D. We don't need to do it like that. How would you do it? And the analogy was, I worked on a Star Trek RPG. I hope this is interesting, because this is one of those times where I talk for a long time and I have no idea whether chat is interested in this or not. But I don't want to interrupt myself by trying to catch up with chat. I worked on a Star Trek RPG as a designer, and my job was the starship combat. I had been working on like Lord of the Rings stuff and Dune stuff, and so I wasn't like full time on the Star Trek RPG. I was just a designer that worked there, and they're like, we needed a starship combat model, and the lead designer kind of wanted to do what at that time and place, like all Star Trek RPG designers sort of wanted to do. There's like a gravity well when you start talking about ship combat in a Star Trek RPG. People want to bust out Starfleet battles. They want to do their kind of like ad hoc mini version of, by which I mean small, not using miniatures, version of Starfleet battles. And I played Starfleet battles as a kid. I thought it was great. I would probably still enjoy that game, frankly. Probably, is Emerald Design Bureau still around? How long? In perpetuity. That's a lot longer than they thought it was going to be. And I objected to that. I was like, well, that's not how the show works, is it? You don't, when there's ever a ship battle in Star Trek, they don't suddenly cut for 20 minutes and we never see the characters again. And you're just looking at a top-down view of ships moving on a grid. Are we? Is that how the show works? What happens in the show? In the show, we stay on the bridge and we issue orders, and we have different systems that we're trying to maintain, right? There are different parts of the ship that are falling apart. The doctor is managing casualties, right? The engineer is managing a lot of stuff, right? You've got a navigator, you've got a weapons officer, and all this stuff. And so the idea was that you would play the Star Trek RPG normally, and then when you went into a combat, you would have this other category of options, right? Which I think we called maneuvers or orders or something like that. You issue orders. So you can do stuff on my turn and I issue. And orders were things you could issue to the ship, right? So every player could tell the ship to do one thing on their turn, right? And then they used their normal actions to manage their department, which was under fire, literally under fire, under literal fire and under metaphorical fire. And that worked really well. That worked great. And we did one of those, I'm sure I'm not the first person to come up with this, but we did one of those range systems where instead of playing on a grid or anything like that, you just had short, medium, and long range. And that's all you cared about is the enemy at short, medium, and long range. And you executed maneuvers to either close range to get better targeting or increase range to get the hell away from them, depending on what kind of ship they were. And because Star Trek ship battles sort of emulate tall ships, right? Master and commander, that kind of nonsense, where it's normally just one ship versus one ship, right? It's no problem. As soon as you have 2 or 3 ships, everything starts to get a little weird, right? So anytime I see one of these range systems in an RPG, I'm like, yep, it works great as long as there's only one bad guy, and we're all in one square, right? But as soon as you have to measure the distance, as soon as you have to track the distance between multiple enemies and multiple heroes, and all you care about is short, medium, and long, and one, it starts to get exponentially nightmarish. But the lesson was, don't leave the characters behind. Play the characters, continue playing the characters. Don't suddenly switch, like we did in Kingdoms and Warfare. Don't suddenly switch to, I'm running an army. That's not this fantasy. You want that, go play StarCraft. Go play Warhammer. If that's the fantasy you want, this is Draw Steel. So what's the solution? Well, it's derived from, if you played the adventure in Kingdoms and Warfare, very similar. The adventures in Kingdoms and Warfare, which is very close to my heart, and I think you're going to see this in probably more than one future MCDM RPG, including Crack the Sun, which we're already working on. We already have outlines for it. We already have writers assigned to it, and they're already working on it. The idea is that you do that Gandalf thing, right? Where you're going to run, there's a war happening. Everybody knows there's a war coming, and the Lord of Dalrath does not have enough troops to defend his barony or indeed his castle, largely because of what's happening, the machinations of the bad guys robbing him of peasant levies and stuff like that. And so it's up to the heroes. The heroes have to kind of ride around the countryside. And there's all these different factions. There's the orcs, there's the Ghoul, there's the Woad elves, there's the High elves. There's even like semi kind of sinister factions that you might be able. There's the dwarves you could recruit, and people like including there's like, oh, there's the Tower of Necromancy. Cool. Whose side is the necromancer on? It'd be great if they were on our side, even though normally we're the necromancer is still a human. Necromancer is still a human, and so even though the Necromancer really doesn't like the Lord of Dalrath, and they've been at each other's throats for a while, which would they rather be? An equal to the Lord of Dalrath and always doing this, or a client state of Bloodlord Varrox, right? I bet we could convince them to, maybe show up and help us out a little bit. Maybe just give us some spells. Maybe just give us some potions or something. It doesn't have to be. So you do this, you go and you help out these factions, and they all have a kind of similar rinse and repeat, which is we'd love to help. Maybe not. Maybe you need to do some negotiation. We'd love to help, except there's this problem. Like our best cavalry are currently off on our frontier fighting this manticore. Well, you know what? We can take care of that manticore for you and then free up your cavalry and they can come help us. Great. So that's a little mini quest, right? One or two victories. And then you get these knights, but they're not in your employ. You've just unlocked them, right? Great. And the elves are like, don't worry, they'll be there. Okay. No, trust us. We owe you. And we also don't want to be under the thumb of the hobgoblins. So A+. Also, they're just trying to destroy the world. And that's where we keep all our stuff. So absolutely, we're going to be there. So then there's the Battle of Dalrath. And this is what you do. You have your normal everyday encounter, right? But the context is, you're going to be fighting bad guys. But the context is there's an army sieging us. And this is a squad of hobgoblins from that army or whatever that we have to fight. And we're trying to defend these different positions. And in the middle of this one encounter, at a point where the director knows when this is going to happen, but we don't, all of a sudden there's a warfare event that happens, which is, the Knights of Dol Amroth show up and they slam into these guys and devastate them, but then they fuck off because they've got stuff to do. So it's just this thing that happens, right? And you get to see it and you're part of it and you earned it. You made that happen, right? So you unlock these warfare events and the bad guys can be doing the same thing. And warfare events can come in all kinds of different shapes and sizes. So that's a way. And that, by the way, that doesn't have anything to do with draw steal. Anybody could do that in the game. What I just described, right, the concept of a warfare event, the concept of recruiting allies and unlocking these special units or these events that they are going to donate to your battle at certain points, you could do that in any TTRPG. So, yeah, that's the answer. Hello, hi. I just talked for 15 minutes for no good reason. Have I ever used a werewolf in my games? Not in the sense I think you mean, except I did run a great adventure. It might be this is probably on Adventure Lookup, and I might have been the one that entered it because I entered the first couple of Dungeon Magazine issues as adventures into Adventure Lookup. But there was a really cool, fun little bite-sized adventure in one of the first issues of Dungeon Magazine from the 80s that involved this person who'd been infected by lycanthropy, which I don't think the players know that. They're just, off in the woods. I don't even remember what the setup is, but I remember the beginning of the adventure was the players coming across this cabin in the woods, and there's like a sheep tied up outside, or multiple sheep tied up outside, and they're there to stop the person inside the cabin who is cursed with lycanthropy from leaving the cabin. Right? They know what's wrong with them. They're terrified of what's become of them, and they know they're gonna turn into a werewolf, and they don't want to show up at the village. Maybe they don't want to do it again. They don't want to show up at the village and start eating people. So what they've done is they've put these sheep like little, like a little piñata around their house. So when they come out, instead of seeing nothing and running to the nearest village to slake their thirst for blood, they just see a sheep and they go, oh good, and they eat that sheep. And the players show up in the middle of this, right? And they're like, what is going on? Why are there a bunch of sheep tied up out here? And it's a great adventure with a werewolf because it's like the dude who's infected is like a priest, and he came out here to kind of study this infection or something. And it was, I thought, really neat and well done. Really simple. So that's as good as it gets for my answer in that regard. Jay Taylor says, I just use a DAW. Have you ever approached it that way? I already sort of live my life on the computer. And to me, the keyboard and mouse, when I use a keyboard and mouse or even look at it, and nothing musical happens in my head. The keyboard is for writing. And that is literally true. That is not a euphemism. The keyboard is for writing, and I'm a writer. So no, in fact, I tried to use a DAW once because I wanted the Valhalla shimmer. I plugged my modular rack into my computer, and then fired up Ableton and downloaded. It's not that expensive. It's like $60. I got the Valhalla Shimmer plugin, and it worked. And it just all worked. And I was like, this is incredible. And so I just assumed that the digital audio workstation was always going to be part of my workflow. And then literally the next day, I just fired it up again, and I hadn't changed anything, and nothing worked. And I couldn't figure out. Literally, I had no idea. I didn't even know what questions to ask. And I was like, well, if this is what using Ableton is like, sayonara, right? And I never went back. And I don't have any desire to go back because I don't particularly enjoy the act of trying to make musical things happen using a keyboard and mouse. No, I don't even like VCV Rack. In fact, I think VCV Rack is bad advice for people that are interested in modular. Because what happens is, I think VCV Rack is simply boring. It's just boring to use. It's not fun to use. It's interesting, and it will produce the same results as physical modules. But modular, for me, is literally fun. It is fun plugging these cables in and tweaking knobs, and that physical reality to it is great. So for me, yeah, I actually don't recommend VCV Rack, although I do tell people about it, because it's free, and even there are paid modules, but even they're way cheaper than the physical versions. But I just don't think it leads people into the hobby. I think they bounce off it. I think they get modular. For one thing, it's free, so that means there's no, that's maybe one of the problems of our society is we made knowledge free for everybody, and as a result, we made it valueless. Right? What do you think is going to happen? Well, all right, yeah, fair enough. Looking around, I'm like, yep, same thing. Like VCV Rack is free, so there's no, you don't have any skin in the game, so to speak. Whereas I have definitely spent hours and hours trying to learn a module because I spent a lot of money on it and I want to figure it out. I was well motivated, and it worked. So yeah, I'm not saying spend money. You don't have. There's no moral imperative to get into modular. Just go into it with your eyes open. What's up, Toasty Virus? Welcome to the show. Do I find myself having to retcon a lot, or do I just build around what I've done? I reuse stuff a lot. I reuse stuff a lot because I run for different groups all the time. So, for instance, I forgot that there was a barony of Rask in the Duchy of Gant, which is where Zil took over. So there used to be a place down here, a barony called Rask, and this Archlich took it over. And now it's the Protectorate of Zil, right? These people are under my protection, for good or ill. And I just forgot about that, but I remembered that I remember that name Rask, and so I reused it somewhere. But that was for a completely different group of people who had never heard of, right? So I reuse stuff all the time, and that's the thing that tends to bite me in the ass now that my setting is real, is that I'm like, oh, right, I've got to come up with new stuff all the time instead of reusing stuff. And I would say most directors don't have that problem, because most directors, I was really lucky that I was working in video games, and I was a full-time employee in tabletop for years, and basically spent the last, 35 years of my life so professionally surrounded by nerds. And so I was always running for multiple groups of people. And so that my problem was I was constantly reusing. This wasn't a problem, by the way. I was constantly reusing stuff. The problem now is I can't do that. I got to make everything up. Which is tedious and time consuming, which I think is redundant. Excuse me. Beyond Adventure. I don't know why I'm singing that song. It's stuck in my head now. TN Tyson says, will I ever reveal lore? Reveal the lore for directors that you still hold secret. There is nothing secret about Orden. I don't have any. We had like 4 or 5 people who were basically stalking me because they wanted more lore. I know this sounds ridiculous, but it's true. I had friends of mine that I hadn't talked to in 20 years message me and say, do you know this motherfucker who messaged me on LinkedIn and keeps doing it? Because I played, they figured out that I was a player in your game 20 years ago, and they want to know. And I was like, what the fuck? I couldn't believe how incredibly toxic people got about my world. And there was this little community that had formed of people who were competing with each other to see what kinds of details they could dig up. Like they were scoring points off each other, impressing each other. Look what I found. I found this archived post from blah blah from from Usenet or whatever, and it was that my friend messaging me and was not happy, was one of those straw that breaks the camel's back moments, where there was basically no limit to how invasively these people were going to behave for no reason. There was no benefit. They weren't going to be able to feed their family or anything like that, but with this information, and that was the point at which I said, all right, there's not going to be any more secrets. There's not going to be any more, anything else, anything folks want to talk about. And, that was one of those moments that really, really, really changed my relationship with the community in a way that's never going to go back. It's never going to get repaired. Right. Folks abuse the privilege, and here we are. But maybe that's for the best. T and Tyson, will I ever explain why humans have so many gods? Yeah, it's in the Patreon. It's all been explained. There are literally no secrets. There's just stuff that I don't know, that nobody knows. What's up, Jim Bob? Welcome to the show. 11:17. That was almost 17 minutes ago. Yeah, Jackson Rono just said the same thing. Inspired me to dip into VCU rack. Not the same thing, correct, but it doesn't cost several $100s. I mean, several $100s is one module in this stupid hobby, but let's not, prices, it's churlish to talk about price. I don't think anybody's gotten the Ajax editions yet, which is really unfortunate. It's costing us a stupid amount of money that we hadn't planned for because it took us longer to get the books done than we thought it would. And we had planned for everybody to already have their stuff by now. But now it's November and people still don't. And so we're shipping the heaviest, they're huge and heavy, Ajax editions at the most expensive time of the year to be shipping things. And we're just paying for that. We're just paying out of pocket for that. And it sucks. That's our bonuses. And people at the company know that. They're like, wait, this is coming. Yeah, it is. 100%. Isn't everything you've done easily usable in any RPG campaign? No, draw steel. The rules of draw steel are not easily usable in any other RPG. Isn't anything you've done? No. Hack, the Knights of the Dinner Table card game, is completely useless to anybody playing a TTRPG. The Red Alert Star Trek ship combat game. No way to possibly use that in any RPG. Good luck. Will K because says, will you, Drew Steele, have an online hero build it real help with new players? If I understand your question correctly, that already exists. I think there might be more than one of them. Go look for Forged Steel. It is an online character builder, and it saves your character. I think it saves it locally. So if you are on one computer and build a character and then move to another computer, I don't think it'll be there. I could be wrong. But yeah, Forged Steel is a really robust and well-liked way to make draw steel characters online and share them with your friends. And you can import them into the codex if you have the codex, which not everybody does. Big post on the Patreon Monday, all about the codex. Exciting things are happening this month. It's a really good time to be here at MCDM. Is there anything else about? Yeah, nope, that's about it. Yep. The entire game is open. Everything except the art and the layout. All the text is open. You can do whatever you want with it. If there wasn't one of those things, you could just go make one. It's one of those things where a lot of people come into these streams and they ask me questions, but what you should be doing is going into the Discord and ask people in the Discord, because all this stuff already exists. You didn't have to wait to get it from Uncle Matt. You could have just gone to the hundreds of people. There's like 40,000 people in our Discord. Not happily, very few of them are active at any one moment. Birch Bongos, I get this question every once in a while. It's a good question. If the opportunity was available, would MCDM be interested in doing collaborations with fantasy properties like Lord of the Rings or Elric? No. Those kind of questions, I think, tend to come more from the fantasies of our community members, what they would do if they were in this chair, right? And I completely respect that. The issue is I started in licensed games, right? My first ever paid job was as a designer on the Dune collectible card game. And then I worked on the Dune role-playing game. And then I worked on one Star Trek role-playing game as an art manager, and another different Star Trek role-playing game made by the same company as a designer, and then a Lord of the Rings role-playing game as a designer. And I did that. I spent my time in the licensed. I spent my time having what I thought were really good ideas that somebody at Paramount would say, no. Like, why not? Well, we don't have to tell you why. Okay. All right. And I did that. So no, now is the opportunity. Like, when Michael Moorcock was able to make a living off his writing. Nobody came to him and said, "Hey, would you like to? Wouldn't it be cool to work on Conan?" He was like, "I got my own Conan. Why would I? What are you talking about?" I literally invented my own. He's reverse Conan, right? Conan starts as a barbarian and becomes a king. Elric starts as a king and becomes a barbarian. Conan is hale and healthy, and Elric is sickly and dying. And Conan hates sorcery, and Elric is a sorcerer, right? So he's like, why on earth would I want to do that? Although that being said, he did probably have a lot of fun working on that Marvel comic, those couple of Marvel comic issues where Conan gets to meet Elric. So no, I have the opportunity now to do the kinds of things that inspire other people the way things like Elric and Lord of the Rings inspired me. And one of the things I've noticed about this might be unique to my generation. I'm very Gen X. It's a part of my identity that I'm hyper conscious of. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but it is true. One of the things I noticed about Gen X is, and this is sort of what the Venture Brothers is about. I probably got a video in me about this. Because I honestly don't think anybody noticed how good the Venture Brothers was and what it was about. Especially when I watch like people asking questions at conventions and stuff. I'm like, these people are just memeing. That's what they like about this show. Fair enough. But that notion that my generation's endeavors are always going to be much, much, much less relevant and vital than our parents' generation and their parents' generation. You know, my grandparents' generation fought the Nazis, saved the world, and then went to the moon. That is a real thing. They really did. That's not an exaggeration or hyperbole. Right? And then my parents' generation was, you know, Star Wars and Fleetwood Mac and Pink Floyd and all of the art, well, not literally all of it, but a whole lot of, you know, Raiders of the Lost Ark and all of this stuff that I loved growing up that culturally was hugely, hugely vital. And then I'm not sure what my generation was able to contribute to any of this. So for me, especially once I started working in video games, I felt like this is my generation's medium. This is where we get to make works of art and get to express ourselves and challenge people and do whatever we want. It's ours. But for some reason, people my age, which now I don't know that there are a lot of people my age working in video games. It's not an old person's career. When they had those opportunities, what did they do? They just quoted John Carpenter movies and James Cameron movies. That's it. They didn't do anything original. It didn't occur to them that had any value. To them, what had value and what was fun was just quoting the Colonial Marines from Aliens or characters from Big Trouble in Little China and stuff like that. And I was like, why? And that was still true. That was still true as recently as 2014, when I'd have to go through. The publisher would throw writers at a project and not let them play the game. What? What do you mean you can't play the game? Oh, we're not here to have fun. I'm like, well, how are you going to know what the hell are you going to write? And you read what they wrote, and it's like, oh yeah, they're making a lot of references to 80s movies, and maybe there's a 90s movies reference in there. I had to cut all that. I had to go through, and I thought I had better things to do with my career. Apparently not. Right. So I'm different than a lot of people, at least that I know of my age, where I really do see this as an opportunity to make, you know, we released a big video game, not MCDM. And one of the things people loved about it was the writing, because of the lore, because it seemed fresh and original, and it seemed like this new thing, and they were invested in. People would write reviews, and they might not like the game, but they were like, the lore makes me want to play lots of games in this setting. And I was like, that's me. I did that. I inspired some. And I wanted to like look around and be like, you don't have to just, but I don't know if you're a millennial or if you're a Gen Z. I don't know if you even have that phenomenon, in which case, good. I think that would probably be better. Excuse me. That is literally insane behavior. Well, I mean, welcome to the internet. A Mother 32 is how I started. Yeah. And I probably would have been happier with my journey through Modular if I'd stuck with the Mother 32 and learned more about it. A lot of cargo cult thinking when I was using the Mother 32, but I found out that Clouds had been discontinued the October previous, and I was like, uh-oh, better get one of those before. I didn't know they were open source. I didn't know that there would be clones forever. Many clones that are better than Clouds, including one from Emily. And so I went to go to my local synth store, which was in Los Angeles, and I bought clouds. And while I was there, they're like, "Well, you need one of these." I'm like, "I guess so." "Oh, you need one of these?" "Oh, goes okay. Well, go one of those, yeah." "Well, what else? What else?" And I bought a lot of modules that I also didn't know how to use. But at that point, I was. Well, I very much doubt we'll still be shipping Ajaxes in January. We're working really hard. In fact, we just pushed off, I think, the start date for our next crowdfunder, which was supposed to be early December. Now it's going to be a little bit closer to mid-December. Literally just so more people would get their Ajax editions, because we want that heat. We want people to see, look, because we're going to be doing a whole new limited edition thing. And it's going to be different this time in the sense that, like, we didn't like the way the Ajax edition went in terms of how many people were able to get it. And we're like, yeah, but we don't want to just make it unlimited. We need to know how many to make. And so our new plan, knock on wood, our new plan is the Sithrion edition. Don't try to spell. If you've never heard that term before, don't try to spell it. You'll hurt yourself. The Sithrion edition of Crack the Sun will be unlimited for the first 48 hours. Excuse me. I have hiccups. Excuse me. What was I just talking about? Oh yeah. So we're just gonna say, yeah, there's the Sithrion edition is available for the first 48 hours of the crowdfunder, and then that's it. And we figure what's going to happen is it's going to do this, right? It's going to go, and then the 48 hours stops. So there we go. That's most of the people who were going to want this got it, and then it's a long tail. And what happens is over the course of the year and a half it takes to get the product done, people are like, oh, I ordered the special edition, limited edition, but now I'm having a crisis and I need that money. Hey, can I get a refund? We're like, sure, here you go, no problem. Because what happens is we then take we take your limited edition that we're going to make anyway, and now we put it in the pool, and every once in a while we go, okay, hey, there's 30 more of these available. And I think we sold, like, I don't know how many Ajaxes. It was a lot. And I think we've had a total of, I don't know, less, like maybe 30 people have said, can I get my money back? We're like, yeah, here you go. No worries. Ben Moore says, Elric would be fun, but it's got some things in it that make it really hard to recommend, i.e. cousin loving. I think perhaps we should be able to make a difference in our lives between recommending a book that is really fucking awesome and recommending the behaviors the people in that book exhibit. Will we ever see the codices? What a great question, Stephen Hoggerl. Will we ever see the codices in Draw Steel? I would like to think so. I don't know if you'll see all of them. I think it's going to be on an adventure. I think the codices. So for those of you who don't know, the first two MCDM 5th edition products, Strongholds, Followers, Kingdoms, and Warfare, had a bunch of magic items in them, and they were typically magic items that would leverage the mechanics that were in here. And something that had been true in my setting for a long time, and so I put them in here, were the idea that the world, there are these ancient tomes of power. And it's not like the 12 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, or is it 12, 11? I don't remember. 11, I don't remember. Some number of rings for the Elven Kings under the sky. It's not like that where they all made by the same dude or whatever. No, these were all these tomes of lore were all written by different people, different civilizations, different eras, but they were all written when the world was young and frisky and magic was more freely available. And many of these tomes of lore bind the world. Like, the reason in the conceit of one of these codices is that the reason the teleport spell works the way it does, maybe it's teleport, maybe it's not teleport. The way this one spell works the way it does in 5th edition is because of this tome of lore. And before that tome of lore was written, you could just do this. You didn't need all these components and stuff like that, and there was no side effect or whatever. So yeah, and there's a bunch of them, and I had a lot of fun inventing them and writing them. But they're all game-changingly, they're all like level 20 artifacts, right? Having one of these is a game-changing thing. But I enjoyed the idea that they might fall into the player's hands for a little while. And so the players could kind of get some use out of this, but not accidentally unravel the world. And then once the adventure's over and they've saved this book from falling into the wrong hands, like the Ark of the Covenant is basically how I think of it. I guess that's probably the best way. I look at each of these codices as like the Ark of the Covenant. We're going to go on a big adventure to rescue this thing so that the bad guys don't get it. But once we have it, somebody's going to come along and say, oh, thank you, I'm going to put it where it belongs. So so that's how you can have these really, really mind-bendingly powerful items available to the players without breaking your game, because they only have it for a little while, and they can't figure out everything it can do, right? They can do some of the things, so I think what'll happen is there might be adventures in Draw Steel, assuming that the game continues to do well. The game is doing pretty well right now, but we're all going to find out really what the demand is for more Draw Steel content in December. That's what next month. That's when our next crowdfunder is. We're going to say, all right, folks, is this real? It certainly seems real given the number of copies we've sold since the game came out. But that's we still not as many as the original backer kit campaign. So that's like, there's 30,000 people who ordered this a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. There's 30,000 people that ordered this almost 2 years ago. And we are all well aware that a big chunk of those 30,000 people had no idea what Draw Steel was going to be or if they were going to like it. Some of them were a protest vote against Hasbro. Fair enough. Some of them were just, I hope this works, or I just like seeing more. Great, no problem. We'll take your money. We all feel the same way. But those people probably aren't going to spend more money on Draw Steel. If there was a protest vote, they voted, and they've already moved on. They might have even forgotten about it. So we're all going to find out together how many people are interested in Draw Steel now, and what appetite is there for more Draw Steel content. But if it continues to grow the way it is and the way we think it can, then I think you'll see adventures that feature the codices, right? So we might not publish like, here's a book of codices. I don't think that would be very useful. It would be fun to read. But I think, why make a product that is only fun to read, right? Because an adventure, anything could be, any RPG product can be made in such a way that it's fun to read. I think core rules tend to benefit more from being perhaps straightforward and not cutesy, not maybe less fun and more useful. But yeah, so I think that's the answer. Let's just talk for a long time. Oh, am I caught up on chat? Oh, Garf, I mean, you didn't need me to find Dune. Obviously, Dune is now $1 billion franchise. We didn't put a Appendix N, I don't think, into Draw Steel. No, we didn't. And the reason we didn't was because Draw Steel is not a Matt Colville joint. It doesn't have my name on the cover. I didn't write that game. I worked on it. I was one of many people who worked on it. And I felt like the amount of text, we were really like, we packed as much stuff as we could into that book, into that page count, before it was going to become prohibitively expensive to ship. And more pages would not have been better. And it wouldn't have been good. I was going to say fair, true, but good. It wouldn't have been good for me to be like, here are the things that influenced me. No, everybody that worked on this book should, if anyone's going to do that, everybody should get to do it. And at that point, it would be huge. So like, no. But if you follow my live streams enough, you know what books influenced me. Turn the reverb off. Well, it's funny because one of the things people love about clouds is the reverb. There are whole modules. There's like a whole FX aid. FX aid has this is just the reverb from clouds because it's legendarily good. Here, I lent you my guitar, but I took all the strings out. Good luck. Oh, thanks. Just get a Nebula. There's other granulizers if you don't like clouds as reverb. Oh, good luck, Droog the Cultist. I think I think a lot of there's a journey a lot of directors go on where inevitably they want to make their own RPG. Oh, Malik Lopez, there are design decisions in Baldur's Gate 3 that I really didn't agree with. Yeah, there's it's all quest design. There are quests where they tell you to do A, B, and C, and if you do A, B, and C, you fail. You have to do B, C, A. And like, how are you supposed to know this? So there was and after this happened to me 2 or 3 times. It really broke my heart. It really broke my heart because I loved Baldur's Gate 3. But I had to start playing every time I did a quest. Well, it wasn't every time. Every time I did a quest where I could tell this is one of those quests, like a storyline quest. Every time I did a quest, I'd have to go online and see, okay, how are you supposed to do this? If we're going to do that, which I've played other games that do this, I just didn't think Baldur's Gate needed this. I thought they had enough time in QA that they didn't need this. Okay, if we're going to do that thing where the only way to beat this is to play the what was the designer thinking guessing game, no thanks. Yeah, and I was really, really angry and disappointed. Dominus, Dominus is like, I don't really need adventures for draw steel. I think you're unusual. Most people, whenever there's a new game, I think whenever you make a new RPG, almost of any kind, I guess if it's a D20 clone or fork, you're probably fine. Although, why would you do that? If you're going to make a new role-playing game from scratch, I think it behooves you to include at least one adventure, if not multiple adventures, because you want to show people how to do it, how to use it. Here is the what. Now I'm going to show you the how, right? And we think that there's a real need right now in the draw steel community for more adventures that will enable more directors to run. So if you're the kind of director that doesn't need an adventure, that's fine, but we would like to increase your compatriots. We would like to make more directors by making more adventures that allow people to go, oh, cool, I get it, I see. But I don't think that's going to be true forever. If we're very lucky, we might get to do another crowdfunder next December, get all this stuff out. We're working on a ton of stuff, get it all out and move on and make more draw steel stuff. And I think if this is draw steel kind of like year one, then year two might have many fewer adventures in it. Because A, we already made a whole bunch of adventures for draw steel, and B, it's open and there are other people making adventures for it. And if those adventures are of sufficiently high quality, then we don't need to constantly be making adventures. That being said, we like making adventures. We like exploring these worlds and I can't wait for you folks to meet the Memenek space pirate in Equinox. I can't wait for that stuff. It's going to be great. So yeah, we're making a lot of adventures right now, but obviously we're not only making adventures. We're also working on 7 new ancestries, 2 new classes, or one of which is basically done, and the other one just went into open beta. So yeah. I sort of feel like this has already been a good stream, and I didn't even bother with the modular thing, and I sort of feel like, well, we'll see. I sort of feel like doing the patch now would be a distraction, but good luck. This is just for watching. I predict you will have fun. Yeah, I loved Red Hand of Doom. I thought Red Hand of Doom was great. I wanted lots more commentary in Draw Steel. I wanted tons and tons of commentary in Draw Steel, meaning footnotes saying, here's how this works. Here's why this works the way it does. And there's like a handful, like 3. There's like 3 issues that everybody seems to have interpreting certain specific rules, and a footnote would have clarified it. But that's kind of an example of why we shouldn't have done that, because there would have been a shitload of footnotes, but there's not a need. There's only a need really for a handful, and we wouldn't have known which ones was which. But also, we didn't have room or time to do that. Yeah, maybe if there's like a second edition someday in the future. Did you folks watch Quinn's review of Triangle Agency? I thought that was a really good review. And it's sort of like there's almost like a subtext to that review, which is there need to be more Quinn's, because he really liked a lot about Triangle Agency, except actually running the damn thing. And he talks about what kind of director he is and how, he needs a game to work a certain way, and if he's going to be able to run it, and this game doesn't have those tools in it, and while you're watching it, you are aware that there are other people out there running Triangle Agency right now who love it. It's just that their style of directing is different than Quinn's, and we need more people doing stuff like Quinn's. We need more of those voices out there so people can kind of triangulate. I feel like, I feel like Quinn's helped sell a lot of copies of that game, because even though he sort of trashes it, talking about how not literally, but metaphorically impossible it is for him to run it. And how, not impossible, just painful and tedious and annoying. And it shouldn't be that way, right? And so he had to stop. He's like, guys, I know you guys are having a blast, but I'm not, right? I think that was Triangle Agency. And that's a good review. That's a good review, but it's not a bad review of Triangle Agency. It's just it's not a bad review of Triangle Agency. It's just Quinn's talking about, which is what reviews are, talking about his experience and how he uniquely, or probably not uniquely, but speaking for people like him, had this experience. So if you're like him, you're going to have that experience. But if you're not, you're going to have a different experience. Is there a plan to have an Ancestries video? Yeah, I'm working on it right now. In fact, I think it might get done and out this week. Black Retro, best kind of retro. So yeah, you're going to get a, yeah. Quinn's is one of the best YouTubers. He's no Posey. He's not in the stratosphere of YouTube creators. He's not Posey, but he's really fucking good. I mean, that guy's he's a real YouTuber in a way that I never have been and never really had a desire to be. Is there anything in the works for a high manifold space fantasy kind of supplement? Well, you do go to the surface of the sun and draw steel. So you're going to get a little space fantasy. You do board a spaceship at near the end of Draw Steel, maybe, depending on the choices you make and how the adventure plays out. We don't know. The adventure's not done, right? We have an outline. We have an outline, and writers are working on it. So I think, but an actual like beginning, middle, and end, you start. We have a roadmap, a very notional. It's not written down really. We have a roadmap for, Draw Steel Year 1, which is Vasloria. So that's, the Red Road, Dark Heart of the Wood, Fall of Black Bottom, Delian Tomb, Crack the Sun, all set in Vasloria. And then phase 2 is probably going to be Capital. That's next year. That's a year from now. We might be running a crowdfunder for Capital. Maybe it'll be 2027. We do the crowdfunder. I don't know. But then after we go to Capital, our goal is to go to space, is to go to the timescape. And my gut tells me that if we are lucky enough, and this would be the number of things that have to go right for something like this to happen is so large that I actually don't know that there's any point in talking about it. I really feel that way. But it's fun to talk about, so let's go for it. That would be its own RPG. And it would be a space fantasy RPG set in the timescape that was merely 100% compatible with Draw Steel. So here's 9 new classes and 12 new ancestries. They're just all unique to the timescape. And you can just play, you can put these two things, it's like War Machine and Hordes. You can put these two games together in any way you want, or run one of them and ignore the other one entirely. But that's a couple years out. Yeah, you're not the only one, Finn Stokes. I feel like we're closer now than we ever have been, now that we have our own RPG. Yeah, like a Starfinder to Pathfinder kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I actually like Starfinder a lot. I think Starfinder is a great game. I have played Starfinder, and I would probably play again. Although I would say at this point, the most fun you can possibly have is building in a 35% miss chance so that you spend 30 minutes every hour doing nothing. The idea that that's the most fun you can have in RPGs, no, I don't. To me, it's tedious and annoying. So I don't actually know. I think it's more likely that I would play. I have a friend of mine who wants to run Draw Steel in the Starfinder world. And I think that's going to happen. That's probably what I would happen. That's probably what I would do. Drop dice. Well, but that's not an issue though, right? Is that even worth comment? Just there's tons and tons of fantasy out there. Douglas Banis. Draw lasers. No, we think draw light. You're getting closer. You're getting closer. I think we have already trademarked the name for the potential sequel to Draw Steel. But actually, we don't need to get into that here. That I feel like naming it is jinxing it. So shall we check out this ridiculous patch? I got this stuff in my hair, and it's making my hair look a little bit grosser and stringier. Normally does. I think that's I have used to it. So you want to? This is going to be. Trust your Uncle Matt. This is going to be interesting. But that's it. This isn't a pitch for why you should get into modular. Let's turn this off. Time Rider Cam, and actually, let's put me in here. Hello, it's me. It's a me. Put that back. Turn that off. Bring that down over here. Actually, let's. Can I do this? Control F. Whoa. Yes, I can. Now I must flip it. And I want to flip it horizontally, so I have to select flip vertical because the people who worked on the original Photoshop don't know the difference. So my head will be here so you guys can see stuff. All right, so all I'm covering up here with my head is the mic. Oh, no, actually, this is backwards. I did not notice that. So let's go here, and now we're going to transform and flip. I want to flip it on the vertical axis, so I have to select flip horizontal. Correct, A+. So this is my tiny little IntelliGel rack. I think, what is this? Is this 48 HP, I think? And right now it is set up in the mode that you already know. Awesome, Luke Strife, A+. Very happy. Very happy. Very happy. Never gets old. Seeing people get their books and be happy. So if I press this big yellow button right now, this thing's going to make music. But I ain't going to do that. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this whole thing apart and show you how it works. Are you ready? All right. All right. Yep. So I'm literally going to unpatch this. And there's always a danger when you unpatch a patch that you're never going to get back to the way it was. One of the things about Modular is that incredibly tiny changes in these knobs can produce huge differences and huge results. There is a reason for the comment. Well, okay, drop dice. I just think maybe it was a thing you could think and not have to work, because like you're already, it's like complaining that there, it's like complaining that there aren't enough Chinese people in China. It's like, well, I think, or no, that's the other way around. It's complaining that there aren't enough. There's complaining there aren't enough. I'm tired of all these white tourists in China. It's like, well, I think there's enough Chinese people there already. You should be okay, right? I think you're already in a hobby that is dominated by fantasy. So I think you'll be fine. Is my point. So I'm going to unplug all this. I can't believe this. There we go. Oh my God. Well, I already wrote, in point of fact, I've already written down what all these things do. I unplugged Pam's from Marbles, and as a result, Marbles' internal clock took over. Okay, so one of the things I should probably do is explain why. Well, I don't necessarily need to do that. So, first of all, why isn't it... Stand by. Time Rider Cam, why aren't you focused? Configure Vijeho. Camera control. Focus. Let's see. I turn, like, what's going on here? First of all, autofocus off. These controls are really tiny. Is it really just not going to get any more focused than that? That's as good as it gets, and that's annoying. I need a different or better camera. Or I need to put this camera somewhere else. Chad says, in Modular, do racks have a pretty standardized jack size? What do you mean by jack size? What do you mean? You mean this? You mean this size? That's a jack. Yes. Yes, you're a modular. So if you don't know what a modular cable is, I love this, by the way, because that's kind of the fun of this, is explaining how this works. So this is what a modular patch cable looks like. Would it be more in focus the farther away it is? Closer is not better. I don't know. Do I need a different camera for here? This is a 1/8 of an inch mono cable. And you can tell it's mono because it only has one black stripe here. They're also called tip and ring connectors, right? And they can carry audio. They can carry audio, but in this case, they mostly carry control voltage. And control voltage, it's literally what it means. It's just voltage, electricity, used to control your synthesizer. It's not high enough voltage to like hurt yourself on. In fact, I think is it less than audio? I don't remember. I don't know what voltage, I don't know electricity. But control voltage is what synthesizers used in the 60s and 70s before they invented MIDI. And it's been MIDI ever since. So people who are doing modular stuff like me are sort of going back in time. And the original synthesizers were modular. And they were what were called 9U, which is 3 times this big. And you can see them. You can see the Moog. They're massive. A single module is huge. But that's because they didn't have transistors the way we do now, right? So we can make the same thing very, very, very small. In fact, there's even a relatively obscure and much newer, like this year or last year, like a really tiny breadboard style modular. And this was made by a dude, this entire standard was invented by a dude named Dieter Depfer, who was a German synthesist. And he's like, why do we need 9U? Well, why don't we just do 3U? And what a U just stands for unit. It's an arbitrary unit of measurement, where this is 1U. And it's familiar to anybody who uses any kind of racks for anything, server racks, effects racks in guitars. I guess I should say that the thing about modular synthesis is there's nothing, I'm going to use a lot of weird language about like envelopes and LFOs and stuff like that. It all seems very abstruse, esoteric. It's like wizard language. But don't be overwhelmed. There is nothing in modular that I'm going to talk about that when you watch your favorite rock band or your favorite, it doesn't matter who, anybody, somebody singing into a microphone, if their voice, if their instrument has any effects on it at all, and it almost all does, right? That's the same stuff, right? Like David Gilmour's pedals all have LFOs in them, and they have attack and decay, and they have envelopes, and they have filters, they have all that stuff, right? All that, anybody playing music that has to plug their instrument in almost certainly has a guitar pedal or an effects rack on stage, and the effects rack use 1U, 2U, 3U, just like modular does. So modular, the only difference between modular and guitar pedals or synthesizers is that when you make a synthesizer with a keyboard, you know what I'm talking about, like a Korg or a Yamaha synthesizer, that synthesizer has all the same shit that modular has. It's just that the people who made that synthesizer decide what you can do with that LFO and how that LFO behaves, right? Well, modular is like, what if you could do whatever you wanted with that LFO? What if you could send it anywhere you wanted? What if you could send that LFO into a filter and into the pitch of your oscillator? What the fuck? What do you mean? Yeah, do whatever you want with it, man. Send it wherever you want, right? So there's a corollary to that. The corollary is that since the whole principle of modular is if we've got LFOs, the LFOs aren't built into anything. This module is not connected to any other module yet. That's what these patch cables are for, all right? There are connections underneath, but those are power. Those are just power cables plugging into a power unit. These LFOs don't know what you're going to do with them. That's the corollary, is modular is just like guitar pedals, synthesizers, anybody making music. Even if it's an acoustic guitar, if they have to plug that guitar into something for people to hear it, there's probably a filter on there somewhere or a compressor or something to make it sound nice to the audience and whatnot. Modular has all that nonsense, but it doesn't know what you're going to do with it. And as a result, you need attenuators. You need voltage controlled attenuators. You need VCAs. There's no VCA in here, but I have attenuators. And what attenuators let you do is take this signal, which these signals coming out here are +5 to -5 volts. So that's a 10 volt range. If I plug this into an oscillator, that would be 10 octaves. What? Yeah. I don't need that many. No, we know you don't need that many, but we don't know how many you do need. So what you do is you take this signal, right, and you send it through, in, out, something, you tell it how much of it you want, right? I only need, what's this? I only need 35% of this signal. Okay, great, right? So you're taking these signals, which are used to modulate, attenuate, control, whatever you want to call it, your music. And you're using voltage controlled attenuators and just regular everyday attenuators to take this crazy range of data and do this to be like, I want less of it. Okay, fine. And I want it here instead. Okay, great. So I attenuate it and I offset it. There we go. Now I've got a thing. Great. Awesome. Thank you. So that's the nature of modular, is all this stuff we're talking about here. Synthesizers have these, guitar pedals have these, all sorts of things have these. They're not unique to modular. The thing that's unique about modular is nothing knows what you're going to do with it. It's all exploded away, right? Imagine if you took a Yamaha DX7 and you blew it up, and every little chip you turned into a module. Same thing. So one of the things that's happening right now is I'm going to turn the FX8. So this is what's called the dry wet knob. And I've never had this explained to me. So I find it funny when people are like, what's the dry wet knob do? And I'm like, oh, it's just dry is the original unprocessed signal, and 100% and wet is the fully processed signal. So 50% dry, 50% wet, it means I'm hearing 50% of the original unprocessed audio and 50% of the processed audio, right? So I'm going to turn the FX8. So let me just walk you through what these modules do. This is Pamela's pro workout. It is the beating heart and thinking brain of every patch I use. I don't know why. I don't know how people get on in this hobby without PAMs. But PAMs is essentially a clock module, right? It'll give you a clock. Right now it's set to 100 beats per minute. But the more you learn about these signals, and again, this is not unique to modular, but the more you learn about these signals, the more you're like, oh, a clock is just a gate with zero width. A gate is just a really, really slow square wave. Wait, what? A trigger and a sound wave are the same thing? Yeah. They're literally the same thing. They're just voltage that's been smushed in different ways, right? And a square wave, it's just a sine wave with a really steep attack and a really steep decay. And you're like, your brain starts to melt. You're like, are you kidding me? It's like, yeah, you take a sine wave. That's not a sine wave. A sine wave is even more perfect than that, right? And you take that slope and you go, oh, there's a square wave. Sine wave. Square wave. Like that. And then a clock is just a square wave with this distance at 0. Oh, thank you. That's a trigger. Thank you. Awesome. Excellent. And PAMS knows that. And so PAMS lets you do all these extraordinary things with this. It can't be an oscillator. I mean, yet, but it does almost everything else. So PAMS is the beating heart. Marbles is a sequencer. It's 3 sequencers actually. And it's designed to give you triggers, do something now, and voltage of this amount. Do something now. Do something now of this amount. Do something now of this amount. Well, if you take that and you plug that into an oscillator, this amount can be pitch, right? But it doesn't have to be. You could sequence any number of things with this. And I'll explain marbles in a second. This is I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce this. It's 0 CHD. So I don't know how to pronounce zerocht. This is the zerocht. And it's just 8 LFOs, each one of which is 50% slower than the previous one. Right, and that's the rate knob. So this one's going wow, 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 wow. This one's going wow, 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 wow. And you'll notice all these cool little jacks, these little holes that make this, and these knobs that make this look like a 1970s spaceship control panel. Well, every hole, almost every hole, blimey, has an associated knob, as do I. So these knobs do things, but look how many knobs there are. I only have 2 hands. What if I want to turn these knobs and I ain't got the hands to do it with? What if I'm busy and I don't want to have to turn knobs? You plug voltage into the jack and the jack turns the knob for you, right? So if I took this signal here, which is just voltage, just going negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, and plugged it into, for instance, the rate, and the rate knob, watch the lights. As I turn the rate knob up, the lights blink faster. These lights down here. As I turn the rate down, the lights blink slower. So what happens if I send the faster, slower? This is not, by the way, it's just going positive, negative, positive, negative. What if I plug that in here? It's going to go positive, negative, positive, negative. It's going to turn this knob for me, right? And then the knob acts like an offset, right? When if I'm feeding it positive and negative voltage, and the knob's in the middle, then the positive voltage turns it this way, and the negative voltage turns it that way. If I turn this all the way here, there's nowhere for it to go negative. So it's going to go up, nothing, up, nothing, up, nothing. Negative voltage won't do anything because I can't turn it down anymore. But now the positive voltage will turn it only positive, right? So yes, a lot of LFOs, a lot of outputs like on PAMs, I don't think they go negative. It's just 0 to 5, 0 to 5. So you want it to be here, and then it goes zoom, zoom. Anyway, you get it. And then the surface is our sound source. The surface is the only thing making sound in this entire patch. And it is a physical modeler. I love physical modelers. They use, among other things, something called Karplus strong synthesis to use math and filters to replicate the behavior of physical objects in the real world when they are struck or plucked, which are essentially the same thing, just in a different way, by what's called an exciter, a mallet, a fingernail, and different physical modelers have different properties that allow them to emulate different physical instruments like guitars or bells. Excuse me, I've got the hiccups again. And then the Nautilus is what's called a delay. And a delay is the same as echo, right? It makes echoes. So it takes the original sound and makes echoes of them. And because it's a very powerful little computer inside here, all these things have little computers inside them. They look like this on the obverse, right? You can do all kinds of things to those echoes, including change the pitch of them. What? Yeah, you'll see. And then the FX aid is a digital signal processor. That's another effect. This is an effects module. It's a delay. This is an effects module, and it can be anything. You just load effects onto it. It's all digital. It's all software. So you go on their website and you grab a bunch of different effects. They could be filters. They could be delays. They could be reverb. They could be a reverb into a filter. There's an extraordinary number, hundreds of different effects you can load into the FX Aid and then select them with these buttons, and they give different parameters and stuff like that. All right. So that's what these and this is my attenuator. This is a scope, which they tell you that a scope is useful when you're getting into this hobby because it's sometimes useful to be able to see what is happening, and I have found that is it's literally you get a scope for the same reason anybody needs a scope. You need to diagnose what the hell's going on. Why is this not doing what I want? Well, let me look at the signal and go, oh, why doesn't it? Oh, there's something. Okay, so right now with the Nautilus, this is the Nautilus mix knob, which does the same thing as the dry wet knob. If I turn this all the way down and I turn this all the way down, when the surface makes sound, it's gonna. And actually, let's. I'll leave the knobs where they are. Why is it like that? It should be like that. And I'm going to unplug this. And I'm going to use these for now. So these can plug into here. You're dusty. Or dusty. That actually worked. I'm kind of surprised. Plug these left into left, right into right. How does it know which is which? And now I can press this button here that says trig, and the surface will make a sound, and it will go through the Nautilus and through the FX Aid, and we won't hear anything that these things are doing because this is all the way dry, all the way dry. What does the surface sound like? Not bad. It has almost its own little like reverb in it kind of thing. And that's just the resonance of the string ringing out. No reverb, just the string keeps. But notice I have the decay knob at like, what is this, 9 o'clock? What happens is I turn the decay knob up. Wow, it took a lot longer to decay. ADOA says it's oct, like 8, because there are 8 LFOs, but that's a 0. That's not an O, that's a 0. So that's on you. You got to figure that out. Look at that. Whoa. This is exactly the same note as this same note. I can make it short and plucky. If I'm annoyed by how long it's ringing out, oh my God, this is so long. Press the choke button and it stops. Choke it off. Okay. Also, let's get so about tone. What does tone do? Oh, do you think this is a typo then? Do you think there should be a O? Adoa? Maybe go ask DivKit. Is this a typo? Tell me what he says. So what's this tone knob doing? I think it's like a filter. I think the tone knob's like a filter. Right? And what's this? This is the strike knob, and this is the how plucky do you want the string to sound? How much attack do you want to give it? Oh, so as I turn up the strike, it gets a lot pluckier. Probably some white noise in there. And now notice as I turn the knob way up here, no strike, it almost sounds like it's a bowed instrument being really quickly drawn across the strings, like a violin string. But now, and I wish I could slow that down. I wish there was a way to. I wish there was a module that would sound even more like guitar strings or violin strings. I sort of got it working with my braids or brads. But I can never. And I've got a plonk, and I saw a video. The reason I got the plonk was because I saw a dude using the plonk to make a cello sound. And I was like, oh, I want that. And I've had it for years, and I've spent hours and hours with it, and I've never come anywhere near. And I think I know how it works. I just have no idea how that dude did that. And so it's one of those things where I wish there was just a module that made that sound. I wish it was just a module that was like the Surface, but for something like a cello or a violin. Okay, so this is what the Surface does. Right? Which module would you like to learn about next? And let chat decide which of these things shall we unlock and add to this process. And whoever I get the first result from, I'll probably go with. Ooh, marbles. Okay, marbles. Yep. So marbles is a sequencer, and it's the woman behind. All my knobs are loose. Here we go. The woman behind marbles likes annoying people, and so she named her modules. She gave her modules titles that are intentionally baffling. And that's a big part of the modular hobby is these people, when you make a new module, it's a new thing. You can call it whatever you want. So you could say it's a topographic drum sequencer. What is that? There is no such thing, but I just made it. Okay, great. You sure it's not just a drum sequencer with a bunch of different patterns in it? Yeah, sort of it is, but it's super topographic, bro. Oh, okay, great. Thank you. So this is a random sampler. Really? What does it sample? Random voltage. Oh, so it's a sequencer. Yep. Okay. All right, then why did you call it a random sampler? Why did you do that? People think they know what a sampler is. Anyway, so there are 3 channels. There's T1, T2, T3, X1, X2, X3. And each T it changes at the same time as an X changes. So these are paired up, right? This T belongs to this X. And these T are triggers, and these X are voltages. And you can send these voltages anywhere. And in the patch I was using these voltages to turn knobs. Right, but this voltage, X2 and X3, are sort of the prime voltage. And let me see what I'll do with them. Let's grab some green ones. So let's turn the rate knob all the way down. Actually, no, let's plug something into the clock input. So now I have told marbles to use an external clock, but I've not plugged it into anything. So right now marbles is not doing anything. So just like I can press this button, so here we go. And so I can either press this button to make it work, but how on earth are you going to play a song? Just pressing this button over and over again. You got other stuff to do, right? So there's a trigger input. Easy. And this voltage I am going to send into the volt per octave. This is the standard that Eurorack uses to for one module to communicate to another. This is how we turn voltage into notes. 1 volt equals 12 semitones or 1 octave, right? So if you take a voltage, and if you take any voltage and you add exactly 1 volt to it, you are adding 1 octave to the pitch, assuming you're sending that voltage into pitch, which most voltage doesn't do. Okay, so now we have our length knob, which is currently set to 8. Let's set it to 4, because 4, let's set it to 4. Let's look at the thing to make it a little bit easier to see what's going on. Right? So now we're going to get a sequence that has 4 notes in it. And that'll happen as soon as I unplug this. How long did it take me to learn this? I've been in the hobby for 9 years now, and I'm always learning. Here we go. So that's what marbles does. But marbles does a lot more than that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the surface back through my quadrat, because for reasons I don't understand, the surface's output is incredibly hot, and it sounds like it's peaking even when all my levels are normal, right? And so I have to tamp down on it, and I do that by adding a lot of cables to this in a very annoying way. So the out from the surface goes into this attenuator, and this out goes into this attenuator. Not great for demoing a module when there's suddenly 4 big cables between you and everything. And then the output of this goes into the Nautilus, and the output of this goes into the Nautilus. And now what used to go from here to here now goes from here into this and back into this. And we're saying tamp down on surface's signal this much. Oh, look, it's listenable suddenly. Right? And can you... Isn't that pretty? Super pretty. I love marbles. Marbles is one of my favorite sequencers because of stuff like... Okay. So, I'm going to show you one of the secrets to the patch that I uploaded to YouTube. First of all, I've got... You can hear that. There's some slop. There's some slop in there, or some swing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not regular. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. It's not doing that. And that's because I've got some jitter. Jitter is take a pattern and kind of take a pattern of notes, a tempo, and on a note by note basis, push those notes around. Right? Instead of these two notes being the same distance from all the other notes, make that one a little bit closer. So it goes do 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 do. That's jitter. But if I turn jitter all the way off, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it's perfectly in time. It never varies even a little bit. And every time I add some jitter, sometimes I have to pair marbles with a trigger sequencer on purpose because I have a pattern that I want. I have a pattern I have in mind that I want to play. Notes, no, give me random notes, but I have a pattern and I can't make that pattern happen in marbles. I just roll the dice. Just roll the dice and see what you get. I actually like that quite a lot. But let's turn the jitter all the way down just so we understand what the hell's going on. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's give this an LFO and see what happens to the pattern. Right, so I'm going to take this rate knob, which has a line, thank goodness, going all the way down to this little jack hole right here. I thought we agreed not to talk about my jack hole. And I'm going to give it an LFO. I'm going to pick one of these. Let's pick this one because it's moving relatively slowly. And I'm going to plug that into this. Ladies and gentlemen, what is going to happen when I plug this into this? Oh, Paul, there's an MCDM Discord that's a modular channel. There's a channel just for modular synthesis, and Paul is sort of the king of that channel. And he put my patch into VCV Rack as best as possible. What's going to happen when I plug this LFO into this jack? We'll all find out together. That's exactly what's going to happen, Moth Mariner. It's going to get faster and slower. But what that's going to do is it's going to group a bunch of triggers together, and then they're going to get, you'll see. Isn't that beautiful? But I was not using this. So I'm going to show you something. I was using PAMs to clock the rate, I believe. What was clocking the rate? Oh no, it was oached 4 into rate. That's interesting. I think I want to tamp down on that a little bit. That's pretty extreme. So I'm going to use my my quadrat. I'm going to take this signal and I'm going to tamp down on it completely. Now as I turn this knob, I'm letting more and more of this signal through. So now it's a lot. Oh, excuse me, sorry. So now I have a little bit more control over how much of the signal I want to go through here. That's beautiful. Isn't that gorgeous? Now, for me, the killer app of marbles are the spread and bias knobs. And I actually have a joystick, a modular joystick that I use, and I plug into the spread and bias of marbles because it gives me the feeling that I'm actually playing an instrument. but I don't have room in this for that. So I'm going to show you what the spread and bias knob does. So what we have right now is we have a fixed pattern. Always plays the same every time. In fact, let's stop fucking with the rate knob for now. Always the same notes every time. 1, 2, 3, 4. What if I don't like these notes? What should I do? The X knob controls the X voltages. When it's blinking, that means it's locked a pattern in. If I want to unlock, if I unlock it, it will permit. It's just random. It'll make random notes. Every note random. We don't know what it's gonna do. One, 2, 3, 4. I locked the last 4 notes in. Now, steps is constraining. It's sort of like a triple Turing machine. The steps knob constrains which notes are legal. So it's acting like a quantizer. And if I fuck, I'm not going to explain quantizers right now because it doesn't factor into this patch. But the reason these notes sound pleasant and harmonic and not just literally random notes, and if you've never heard of literally random notes, then you don't know what I'm talking about. Like I don't mean sit down at a piano and play random keys. I mean, imagine if there were 1 million notes between every 2 notes next to each other on a keyboard, and you could play any of those notes. You'd be like, oh God, this sounds awful, right? So we need to constrain those notes somehow, and that's what the steps knob is doing. So I'm going to show you something fun about the Surface. It sounds sort of like a guitar right now, I guess. I don't know what you would call this, but definitely some kind of like plucked string instrument, right? Well, it's got a model knob. It's got 8 different models inside it. What happens when I turn this knob? Watch this light. It'll blink. I like this. Ooh, that's what I want. Like a bass guitar. Very plucky right now. What if I keep going? The snare drum. I don't know what the fuck that's supposed to be. So, one of the things I did with this patch, I haven't even started talking about the spread and bias knobs yet, but I got off track, is I grabbed Pam's, right? And, which Pam, here we go. So watch this light. See this light here? Blink, blink. This is set to make random triggers, or gates, I should say, random gates. In fact, I can show you what it's doing. Channel 5 is making that shape, and if I go to the here, you see the scope? It's showing me when the signal's high, but notice that the signal only goes this high, it doesn't go all the way up to the S. And if I take this and plug it into the model knob, I plug it into the model jack, I dialed this specific output 5 on Pam's. I dialed it in because 60% of the full signal, 60% of this knob, turning this knob 60% of the way instead of 100% of the way, dials it into that bass guitar sound. So I could randomly switch the guitar sound to the bass guitar sound. kidding me? Brilliant. That's modular. That's some modular bullshit, right? Is I'm randomly plucking bass guitar strings, and I don't know when. And I'm doing bass and if I wanted to, I could do crazy timings. I could do guitar and bass and have a bass line and guitar notes all playing at the same time just by rapidly and intelligently switching on a specific pattern between two models of the surface. And you could do up to Plonk, you know. What do you folks think so far? Is this interesting? Let's unplug this for now. So, what if we want another sequence? Actually, what if we want more notes in our sequence? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3. But it'll be easier to see what I'm about to do if there's only 4 notes. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the spread and bias knob fuck with the pitches. They take the sequence. They take the sequence and they push the notes around the scale in interesting ways. It's transposing in interesting dynamic ways. Oh, sure, all the time, Alligator Tower. This is real. I mean, I love this. This is really pretty. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the same pattern. We haven't changed the pattern. Marbles knows what the original sequence was. It's just pushing the notes around, and it's not destructive. The plant is reacting to the signals we're giving it. We're not giving it any yet. It's got its own internal clock. And bias does the same thing on a different axis, basically. 1, 2, 3, 4. So spread and bias are giving me permutations of the sequence, and I can always go back to the original. Come on. How can you not love this hobby? So, you know how the knobs work, right? I am going to send spread and bias 4 and 3. So, 1, 2, 3 into spread and 4 into bias. Now, the Ocht gives me negative and positive voltage. Pam's only gives me positive voltage. So I need to turn these knobs down because I'm only adding to them. Pam's can't turn something left. It can only turn it right. But I don't want to go all the way because then it sounds like this. Oh, because I've got these plugged in, right? If I just have these knobs turned all the way like this, I just get one note. Right? So I don't ever, sometimes this is going to be random and sometimes these signals are 0 and I don't want 0. So I'm going to offset it a little bit. Right? And then plug these in. And now, see this is divide by 48? Well, I think this is 1. So every time, when this blinks 48 times, once every 48 blinks, let's see, is it 48? Yes. Every 48 blinks, I get new values for these two knobs. As a result, over time, I don't have to do anything, and the sequence just changes and evolves on its own. And actually, they don't both change at the same time. They each change once every 48 blinks, but I have one of these out of phase with the other. So one of these changes every 24. It's just this one does it every 48, and this one does it on the offset 48. So every 24 it changes. Brendan O'Connor young Miss O'Connor wants to know how long it took me to build this setup. It took me a couple of weeks of noodling on this a couple hours every other day. And dialing in and dialing in and dialing in and being like, and listening to what do I like and why is the surface so loud? I can't figure that out. I thought it was something else I was doing. I'm like, well, it seems like it's just the surface is hot. What if I put the surface through the duat and tamp down on it? And I was like, oh my God, now everything sounds brilliant. Great, thank God. So now let's modulate the jitter knob. And what we're going to do is we're going to use one of Marbles' voltage outputs, which most people probably use this to make more notes with more instruments. Right, so I could control 3 different instruments with Marbles, 3 different surfaces. I could have 3 different surfaces hooked up, and all of them would be playing harmonically complementary. They'd be playing chords, and they'd have triggers at different times, all getting triggered. But I'm not going to send this signal into to pluck a note. I'm going to use this signal to change the jitter. It's not doing much, is it? We could do better. It's just not changing enough. The signal coming out of Marbles is not puissant enough. It would be if we increase this knob, but I'm not going to explain. Click that button, but I'm not going to tell you what that button does. So let's give the jitter knob some other signal. What happens if we give it this crazy fast signal? It's still pretty predictable because this is turning the knob left and right at a very specific rate. We could just, with PAMs, we could give it random voltage, but I was using all my PAMs outputs. Too much, too many notes there, Mozart. No, that's not what I want. Hang on. Self-patching. So, Marbles has a 7th output, which is the Y output, which is neither T nor X, and it's just an LFO that goes positive and negative in time with all these other things. So you can self-patch Marbles. I can plug this into the rate knob, plug this into the jitter knob. Oh, of course, Shadow Dragon. Any module you can think of exists. That's still too many notes. The signal, it goes too high. We don't want the rate knob to go all the way to 100. So we would want to tamp down on that. Now, there is this button here, and it's currently green, and that is what voltage range do we want notes in? And I think this is like 2 octaves, right? Green is like 2 octaves. It might be 1 octave. What happens if I press the button? It's going to give me a wider spread of notes, a wider legal range of notes. Well, notes can get lower, but notes can also get higher. And I played around with this, but I was like, no, I actually like the fact that the bass notes are random. Because I didn't like that bing. I didn't like that really, really high, suddenly a really high sound. So I left it at this, I think, 2 octave range. Now, there's another thing we can do is we can turn. I'm not gonna worry about the deja vu knob right now. But let's reseed. Let's reseed our pattern. All right. I think we're almost done. We're going to talk about the Nautilus and the FX8 now. Here, let's give it the bass note that it gets every once in a while. You all know how that works. Fucking love it. All right. So the Nautilus is a delay. It's a effects module. It takes audio, which comes from, in this case, the surface, and it does things to that audio. And when I have the mix knob turned all the way counterclockwise, what I am telling Nautilus is I don't want to hear any of that stuff. I just want to hear surface. But as I turn this up, you're going to hear what the Nautilus does. In fact, let's get... So this is 50% Nautilus, 50% surface. This is only the Nautilus. What do you want? Come on. Remember, this is what we started with. Because this light here at orange is the pitch shift up note. So what it does is it takes these echoes it makes and it pitches them up at different intervals in random and harmonically pleasing ways. And if I press this knob, it's going to change the light, and that means I'm picking a different pitch model. And some of them they're all pleasant in different ways for different reasons. Here, let's start rehearsal. So isn't that interesting? I'm at 100% wet, I'm only listening to the Nautilus, but I'm not really hearing any delays. Well, actually, everything I'm hearing is a delay. It's just there's now one delay, and it's happening at the precise same rate that the incoming audio is coming from. Because this is the sensors knob, which is just a fun term Qubit used for how many delays do I want, right? One delay means it just sounds like the original, right? If I just repeated everything you said as you said it, and somebody was listening and they couldn't hear you, but they could hear me, I would sound like I was speaking normally. We turn the number of sensors up, and we add delays. And Nautilus has its own internal clock, and we're not clocking it externally right now. So if I want, I could take these delays, I could spread them out. That's what this does. That's what the dispersal knob does. It disperses the delays randomly. It's kind of like the jitter knob for marbles. More sensors. More dispersal. Now... And this is the left-right button. How many delays do we want to happen left or right or... Doesn't that sound amazing? Now, Nautilus has its own effects. It's even got a reverb, but there's no CV control over the reverb, so it is of no value to me. And that's in the chroma bank, right? And that's this knob. It's kind of annoying. People who are into modular don't like it. Can you guys even hear me? People who are into modular don't like it when there are knobs you need to turn, and they're just these tiny little potentiometers. We prefer knobs at least this big, but where would you put that? So this is the solarizer, I think. And depth is a pretty common, a lot of modules have something like this. Thank you. A lot of modules have something like it, and this is basically just an attenuator for the effect. How much of the effect that I've selected do I want to apply, right? So as I turn this up, you're going to hear the effect, and I don't even remember what the orange one is. I don't really know what it's doing, actually. It's very pretty. Kind of loud. But there's like a bit crusher in here. Here, I'll show you. That's interesting. This isn't doing as much as it used to. I do have a bunch of blanks, Sean. I got some very nice off Etsy wooden blanks. I don't think all the ones I ordered arrived. So this is the red effect, and it's I don't know what the fuck this is. It's distortion. So red. So you see, right, that how much I've selected the red effect from the chroma, and how much of that red effect is going into the delay lines is how much red there is in the kelp lights. As I turn this knob up, more red. People like that. I don't know why. Let me see. What's the first one? What's the first? It's a filter. It's a high pass filter, I guess. That was the blue one. What's the green one? Low pass filter, high pass filter. What's the purple one? The bit crusher. Digital. But I thought I liked the yellow one. But I don't know what it does now. And keep in mind, all we're listening to is the Nautilus. We're not hearing any of the surface, right? The Nautilus is taking the surface's audio, duplicating it in various ways, and throwing those duplicates, those echoes, out at us. This is what the Nautilus is, what the surface is doing. That's what the mix knob does, same as the dry wet knob. Oh yeah, shouted Rackin, 100%. Yeah, King Gurk, it sounds like how soft focus looks. Yeah, I don't really know. You can look in the manual, it's online. All right, and now all I'm doing with the FX aid is reverb. Saturation, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, thank you. How do you make your basic bitch rings into clouds nonsense sound amazing? You drown it in reverb. But you don't always want to be drowned in reverb, so... You see? This light, this voltage, is turning this knob. No reverb, All reverb. So, let's clock marbles with Pam's so I can use Pam's to turn this whole thing on and off. Now you sort of know everything I did in this patch, right? I was using the ocht, and I was using the Y output, which is like an LFO from marbles, and I was using all of these jacks on Pam's to turn all these knobs so that the patch was sometimes all dry because there were LFOs controlling these, and sometimes they were out of phase. They were random LFOs that were not from different sources. So sometimes randomly it would suddenly be crystal clear what was happening, and then sometimes it would be all Nautilus, and sometimes it would be this and this. Sometimes it would be a little both. And then I would take the rate knob, slow it way down, hardly any notes. Hardly any notes, so no delays, nothing to delay, nothing, no echoes, and then turn it way up. This is the patch. I mean, mostly. I can absolutely show the signal on the scope. What signal do you want to see? What signal would you like to see? The signal I was just there, I think I was using the scope in the patch. And what I used the scope for was, I went from here, from the notes, they're going to the surface. Right? So if you look at the scope, which is not in focus, I apologize. I need a different camera for this. Put it back in here. You can now see the notes happening. You can see it. This is like a graph of not just when, you can see it every time a note changes, you can see it, but also what the pitch is. Higher voltage means literally a higher pitch. Alligator Tower, no, but you'll see people in modular. Well, the question was, does the modular community care about music that requires manual knob turning versus automated? If it's all automated, then that's probably a generative patch like this one, which is, I don't know what it's going to do next. You know, I was even modulating this. I was reseeding and stuff. I was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I had no idea what it was going to do on a case-by-case basis, except it was all going to be in a certain category, right? It's generative ambient, it's what it's called. Generative meaning the patch makes itself. The music evolves randomly but pleasingly, and the person who created it doesn't know what they're going to do, right? As opposed to what's called a performative patch, where I'm literally going to take this to like an open mic night at a music place and patch it up and play. And that's what like Mylar Melodies does. Like Mylar Melodies does that, and he has cases bigger than this, but not much. And it's just drums and bass and synths, and it sounds like you're at a rave, right? And it's all turning knobs. He does. That's what makes it performative. Is I can hand tune these things live. That's performative modular as opposed to ambient modular. That's the patch, folks. What I was also doing was I was turning all these knobs. So sometimes you got really plucky sounds. Sometimes you got really sonorous, smooshy sounds. It's a technical term we use here in modular. That's it. Isn't it pretty? And what I wanted to do was I wanted to find a way to use maybe a precision adder and take the voltage coming out of marbles and add it to some voltage that I could control going up or down to turn this knob more so that it would sound like this. First of all, let's unplug the model. Thank you. Right, so what I wanted was this effect. I wanted this. But I couldn't figure out how to make it do that with the space I had. I was getting way too much range and stuff, and I was like, oh, what a pain in the ass. Thanks for watching, folks. And now I can turn this off. I can unplug it, and I may never patch this way again. I need the Quadrat for a completely different patch. Actually, something I was going to do, but we spent like an hour just hanging out and talking, which is probably the most fun part of the stream, is I was going to replace rings. I was going to replace the surface with rings and see how differently it sounded. But maybe I'll do that on a Twitch live stream, twitch.tv/Matthew_Colville. I try to stream on Twitch like twice a week, Friday. Whoop, what just happened? Pressed a button. Fridays and Saturdays. And there we go. I should check out Paul's VCV rack version to see how rings sounds. Yeah, Shadow Drac, I mean, it's weird because people in the music community get real pissy when it comes to modular, and I've never really understood why. And they'll do things like they'll say, well, has anybody ever written a hit song with modular? And you're like, what kind of question is that? What are you talking about? Where is that attitude coming from? Really popular attitude. And but that's not what modular is about. The answer is yes, absolutely. There's like M83 had a hit single that had modular all in it, and you can see it when he does it live. He's got his rack. I mean, there's lots of songs that I have heard on the radio. Now I don't listen to pop radio stations, but I've heard songs on the radio. I'm like, that's Rings. I recognize Rings. Rings is unique. Nothing sounds like exactly like Rings. Yeah, I hear modular. I hear lots of songs that use granular synthesis, and I can tell it's very distinct. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, a lot of musicians will have a rack that they just use for sound creation to make really unique sounds that they feel like they can't make on their DAW, or they can't make it in the same way, or as a processor for like the instrument. They'll take their instrument, put it through a rack, and it'll do all this crazy stuff to it. Like you could plug a guitar into the Nautilus, 100%, right? Absolutely you can. But for me, the hobby is not about, okay, I made a track. Let's not call it a song. I don't think The Glow, which is what I uploaded to YouTube, I don't think that's a song. I think a song has parts, A, B, A, C, A, B, right? A song has parts, and you can absolutely, I mean, I've got an eloquencer just for this purpose, right? Lots of modular sequences will let you build songs out of parts, and parts have patterns, and they can evolve and change, and it sounds like whatever you want it to sound like. Sounds like whatever song you want to make on it, 100%. But for me personally, modular is about putting your headphones on, sitting in front of grabbing a bunch of modules, having an idea. What if I used the Leibniz subsystem to modulate the Hell expander to the Odessa? What would that sound like? And you go, oh my God, I'm onto something. And you spend hours, 2 hours with your headphones on this fucking journey. And sometimes it sounds dissonant and weird. You're like, oh, how do you do that? And then you're like, this is amazing, right? And sometimes you're in a pleasantly altered state of consciousness. And then when you're done, you're like, I feel like I need a cigarette. That was amazing, right? And you have nothing to show for it. I mean, it might still be the way you left it set up, and you could do it again if you wanted to, but you didn't record it. What would be the point of that? Go on a hike and enjoy the outdoors. You don't need to record it. I just did it. I did it. I remember. I have the memory, right? Now, sometimes I record what I do. I've got a whole SoundCloud. I've got hours and hours of barely listenable nonsense on my SoundCloud. If you want to know what my best thing that I've done in modular, if it's not this, it's Glass. Check out the track Glass, named after Philip J. Glass. Yeah, you can make an infinite number of custom pedals. Yeah, that's a lot of people put their instrument through a modular rack. And this is relatively small. Like this is, I've got a case for it. It's like 4 pedals, and there are lots of guitars that have way more than 4 pedals. So that's my relationship with modular. And this is specifically a hobby I got into. I was still at Turtle Rock Studios when I got started. MCDM didn't exist yet. But my YouTube channel existed. And Dungeons and Dragons had sort of gone from being a hobby to more like a job, right? I was now making YouTube videos about D&D. I was still playing a lot of D&D, but my relationship with that hobby had changed a lot. And so I needed something, and also streaming D&D, all that stuff. strongholds and followers, all that nonsense. I really needed a new hobby that was completely unrelated to any of this stuff I was doing. That didn't involve sitting at a computer with keyboard and mouse. It didn't involve rolling dice at the table. It's just me. And I watched a video with a Mother 32, which is a Moog semi-modular synth you can buy at Guitar Center. And it's got the classic Moog ladder filter. So it sounds like, you can make it sound like Vangelis. And that's what I saw somebody doing a demo just because I listened to a lot of synth music. And this was the first time I had seen like a modular anything. I'm like, what's that? And I clicked on it and it sounded like Blade Runner. And I'm like, oh my God. That's Vangelis. That's the CS83. That's the Yamaha. It's not exactly, it doesn't have that notch in the saw wave, but it was really, really close as far as I could tell. And I was like, this is amazing. And if I just bought that box, I could make those sounds. I don't have to be a musician and know how to play. I don't have to do any of that. I took piano lessons. I hated it. I was probably too young. Or actually, no, I was probably too old. It's probably exactly the wrong age. I was 19. If I was 7, it would have been fine. Probably now it would be fine. But then, no. And so I went and I bought one. I bought a Moog. I was like, what? It's $500. I'm doing okay. I don't have kids to put through college. I can spend $500 on my hobbies. And I went and I got it. Literally, I went to Guitar Center. I said, I'm looking for a Mother 32. And the guy went, great. What's that? Okay. And he's like, neat. What does this do? And it was fun. I was like, well, it does. I think it does this. And I took it home and I plugged it in and it didn't sound anything like Blade Runner. Go fuck yourself. And I was so angry. And I worked so hard on this stupid box that I didn't understand. And so I go to the video. I'm like, what's going on here? And I go to the video and I'm like, no. I look in the comments. And somebody in the comments said, hey, what reverb are you using? And the dude goes, oh, Valhalla Shimmer. Just, just the regular Valhalla Shimmer in Ableton. And I'm like, fine. So I go and I go get Ableton Live and I get the Valhalla Shimmer and I put the modular through there and it worked. And it sounded exactly like Blade Runner from 1982. And I was in love and I was never leaving the hobby. And I'm like, this is it, baby. This is it for me. I'm lost. I need more knobs. I need more knobs. I need more things. I need things to turn knobs. I want to turn them. I want to press buttons. I want to press buttons, turn knobs, make music, make pretty music knobs. And I haven't looked back. And I've spent a stupid amount of money on this dumb hobby. But most of that's behind me. My rate of I don't have gas anymore. Every once in a while I buy a module and I know what I'm getting into. So thanks for watching, folks. I feel like that was a pretty good stream. I don't know when we'll see each other next. I might stream. I thought we might go to space today. We tried going to space last night and things got really interesting. I got interdicted in Nix. And it was amazing. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna wreck a motherfucker because I'm in the Guardian. And then I realized, do I ever run stuff through a virtual audio thingy where you actually plug in Valhalla Shimmer? I think I know what you're talking about. There's a module I used to have, I sold it, that had cartridges with different effects on it. Kind of like the FXA that I just showed you, except way more CV control over all the parameters. And you could get in a cartridge, you could get a licensed effect that you can't get in the FXA, like Valhalla Shimmer belongs to somebody. So no, I don't do that anymore because I didn't like the way it sounded. Anyway, so we might stream on Twitch later today. We might go to space. Sorry, Fleamq swipes. And actually I can turn these incredibly bright lights off. There we go. And I look a little bit more natural now. Actually, I look kind of gaunt. Maybe it's winter. I need more sun. I need to get a haircut too. I don't like having my hair. I don't like the Lyndon Johnson hair old person hair slick back thing. Time for a haircut. Yeah. So thanks for watching, folks. I don't know what, next video is probably going to be the Draw Steel Ancestries video. And I got a bunch more videos in the pike. Probably the crowdfunder video is going to happen before you get to see most of them. But I want to do a video about my style of dungeon mastering. I want to do a video on what makes a good writer, which is the same, by the way, as what makes a good YouTuber, and probably what makes a good dungeon master. And that is, you have to have a theory. I'm going to do a video on that. That might be a really short video. And there's a couple more that I've run a lot of. I want to do a video on how to make a class for Draw Steel. That's going to be pretty straightforward. And I want to do a video where I talk about what I've learned running Draw Steel, and that's going to have some normal everyday Game Master advice in it. The stuff I've learned running Draw Steel that's useful to anybody running any game. So these are all things that I want to do and work on moving forward. So you're going to get more videos for me, folks. I mean, no one accuses me of this, so good. But I haven't left YouTube. I just make, the rate of videos has never changed. It's always been exactly the same. One video for every idea I have. And when I started on YouTube and I had this topic, I had tons of ideas. Well, I've talked about all those. And so now, not so much. So you still get a couple of videos a year. I would like to do more. And I think I'm going to. We have people here at MCDM now who do all the stuff that I used to need to do myself. And that gives me more time. But there's still stuff I enjoy working on. Like I'm going to have to do a lot of work on the Ancestries book. I believe the Ancestries books now has a name, Between Sun and Shadow. Ancestries of Vasloria and Equinox, because that's the uniting principle of all 7 of these ancestries, is that these are ancestries that you would find in either the adventure. Actually, that's a good name for it, because the Heliox, that's definitely Sun. they're not in thingy. You meet Heliox and Crack the Sun. Well, actually, yeah. So yeah. Anyway, you get it. Maybe it should just be Heroes of Sun and Shadow. 7 new ancestries for Draw Steel. Yeah, that sounds right. We shouldn't reference Vasloria or Equinox because it includes the Heliox, and they're not from either of those places. Right? So yeah, it probably should just be Between Sun and Shadow. 7 new ancestries for Draw Steel. And I have a lot of work to do on that. I think most of the design work is already done, but I have a lot of lore I got to write. We think you're going to learn more about like a Draw Steel gnome than you will have already learned about Draw Steel elves, because this is a book just about these ancestries. I could spend a lot of pages talking about gnome culture and history and technology and stuff when I didn't have that luxury in the core rules. And I don't think it would have been, I don't necessarily know that it would have made the core rules better, having that we put the information in there we thought you needed in order to play. But more is always welcome. So yeah. Anyway, until next time, folks, thanks for watching. Be seeing you.